Okay, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Aisha Abubakar from Federal University, UC MSc, and I'm from the project coordinating team, and I'll be moderating this session for today. Thank you very much for joining us, and I thank the moderator for accepting and honoring our invitation. We have given extra 5 minutes for people to join, and we are currently 34 in number. Before we start, I would like to give the floor to the chairperson to give a welcoming address. Thank you. Chairperson, sir, you're welcome.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, please, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
All right. Good everyone. My name is Abdullah Mabatunde, and welcome everyone again to this session. So this will be the last session on the scientific training and publication that we started exactly April 10, 2022. So, and after this, we have some other programs for FAMSA Kuma before the end of the tenure.
Hello.
So I urge everyone to pay attention to today's topic, which is on research ethics and how to get started. This is very important because despite knowing everything about research, we need to understand that there are some rules that guide research so that we don't end up affecting our integrity and our name as a researcher. So we need to pay attention to this session, and also the next one, which will be about how to get started. So we'll be having a practical experience on how to get started, whereby a young doctor who was also an undergraduate to be telling us how he started and share his experience with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. And now I'm going to give the citation for Ismail.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay, yes. I'm going to give a brief citation. Dr. Ismail is an associate professor in biochemistry of Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Federal University, where he has been teaching and researching since 2012. He was a Deputy Director of Research and Publications from 2018 to 2021, and presently the Director of Research, Innovation and Development of UCLA University, Kano, where he is serving 1 year sabbatical. Dr. Sadi, who completed his PhD at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and his undergraduate studies at Bayero University, Kano. His research interests lie in the area of diabetes,
Hello, Aisha.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. I think Aisha's network is bad. She's not hearing what we're saying. Hello.
Hello? I can proceed, right?
Yes.
So, good evening once again. As I have been introduced, my name is Salu Ibrahim Ismail of the Department of Biochemistry Unit, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Federal University, DC, Jigawa State. I hope you can hear me very well because it's like I'm having trouble with my network. I hope it's very stable. Can I go ahead?
Yes, it's stable. We can hear you.
Yes?
Yes, you can go ahead. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, very good. So actually, I am here to present on the medical research ethics. And the approach I'm making is that I'm going to use the experience I had in conducting clinical trials. Though medical research ethics is a very big and wide subject when it comes to conducting medical researches. But by going by the experience I have had in the conduct and in interaction with the patients, our clinical staff, and some of the recruiting staff that we have in conducting this clinical practice. But before we go further, I think we need to understand what is even ethics itself. Ethics is a philosophical term that tries to describe what is right or wrong. Because when it comes to medical decision, the concept of right or wrong is a relative term. Because when you take the other aspect, what you think may be right in another term, it could be wrong in another term. So the concept of ethics is the formal study, as it can be seen here, that determines what is right and what is wrong. And also, it depends on the study of the basis or principles for deciding what is right or wrong. Because sometimes it's not just doing an intervention, it's right for the patient or wrong, but also you have to determine the moral, the ethical basis upon which you base that your decision to be is the right decision for that patient or is the wrong decision. And thirdly, sometimes you have to analyze the processes whereby which you decide that intervention you are taking is right or wrong. Because most patients, when they enter into research studies, they participate with the intention that they are going to receive the best interest, the best treatment that will bring about a solution to their own problem. So the mindset they mostly approach most of these researchers, they come with the mind that this intervention is going to solve their own problem. And another thing is that the researcher or the principal investigator may give an idea that a vague idea that you are going to be safe, nothing is wrong. So the face that they mostly give to these participants is the face that everything is going to look good. But in reality, it's not whatever you think that comes out of these researches. So these three key things I want us to put at the back of your mind before we launch into the main context of the paper presentation. We are going to study to understand how do we decide what is right when it comes to medical research or what is wrong, and upon which basis do we put this the scale of rightness and wrong, and also the process that we decide to be right or wrong. When we look into the philosophical discipline, ethics is what that comes from the Greek word, from ethos, that means customs or practices. There's something like moral, which goes with the moral that comes from the Latin word that goes with the character or nature. So in a nutshell, when you study ethics, you are studying the custom or practices upon which you base your decision or intervention. So when it comes to medical ethics, it means the processes or the intervention upon which the decision of which the intervention is it right or wrong. Is it going to bring a lot of benefit or a lot of harm to the patient? Okay, now let's go to understand what is even the ethics itself. From the definition, a UNESCO definition that I bring about the definition of ethics is telling us that it's a system of moral principles or standards governing the conduct of any research. is a system of principles by which human actions, intervention can be judged either to be good or to be bad, to be right or to be wrong. So ethics is a set of rules or standards governing the conduct of any particular class of human action, be it medical intervention, be it a medical procedure, be it a surgical procedure, be it anything. So it means any set of moral principles or values recognized by a particular religion, profession, belief, or philosophy. This is a general context. But when we come back into the ethical ethics, the basis upon which we base our own medical intervention to be the right one or the wrong one, with respect to the right conduct, at the same time respecting the right of the patient, the right of the individual. So the ethical principles of conducting researches. There are at least four main principles. Number one, we have autonomy, because most of the ethical researches, they tend to involve the human subject. And there has to be a respect for the human subject, and autonomy for the participant or their representatives. Because there are some cases whereby in the conduct of these researches that there is something that we are going to see the informed consent. Some patients or the research participants have not met the criteria to be involved in those researches. So sometimes on behalf of their own representatives, they are going to act as their own representatives. So whatever is going to come, the decision on behalf of those patients, it's coming on behalf of those representatives. So there has to be respect, the autonomy of the participants or their representatives, and also it has to be beneficial. That is to act always in the best interest of the participants. Whatever the medical intervention is going to be, it has to be in the best interest of the participants. And also the third one, the non-maleficence, that is you have to minimize harm as much as possible, and justice, so that to act fairly to all. Okay, why do we study medical ethics? Ethics is and always has been an essence component of medical practice. Some ethical principles are basic to the physician-patient relationship, but application mostly in situations could be problematic. So study of ethics prepares medical students and also makes them recognize the difficult decisions and situations and to deal with the patient in a rational and principled manner. Then about medical ethics, a lot of people have been saying that as long as the physician is knowledgeable and skillful, ethics doesn't matter. And some believe that ethics is learned in the family, not in medical school. Some believe that medical ethics is learned by observing how senior physicians act, not from books or lectures. But ethics is important, but our curriculum is already crowded that there is no room for ethics teaching. So when we look into the medical ethics, it's something that is very necessary. Sometimes it's not only in delivering your own medical intervention to the subject, but the manner and the approach which you deliver this intervention matters. So what is the even purpose of the human subject research? Number one is to understand the basis of the human diseases. Number two, to validate new therapies. Number three, to understand physiological processes. And number four, in the cases of humanities and other social sciences, to study human behavior. So we conduct human researches in order to understand the basis of human diseases, the cause and effect. What causes this, and it causes what is the effect of a particular intervention, a drug, a treatment, a therapy, or a particular system on a metabolic processes. And also we have some therapies, we need to evaluate them to validate the safety or the efficacy of those therapies on medical on subjects. So, and also to understand the physiological process, as I mentioned it earlier. So we have to understand that, sorry, I just have some. So there are a lot of ethical issues that come as a result. The issue of this medical research ethics. Initially, a lot of researches were conducted without any ethics. So I have some examples now, like during World War II, there was a case that was very popular, the Nuremberg trial, whereby Joseph Mengele, a scientist that conducted a lot of unethical experiments that performed by Nazi doctors on twins, which after the World War, like some of the doctors were charged with war crimes against humanity. Some doctors were even sentenced to life imprisonment, some were even hanged. And also we have another cases of incidents in 1963, the Brooklyn Jewish chronic diseases, whereby some patients were injected with cancer cells so that to see if their body would immunologically reject those cells. And also in 1972, we also have another case of unethical research, whereby some retarded children were deliberately infected with viral hepatitis. So there are so many cases that a lot of scientists were conducting a lot of researches in those days without proper guidelines. So this thing brings about the committee to declare this declaration of Helsinki, which also in 1961, I think we have had a lot of this thalidomide scandal, whereby pregnant women were given thalidomide, and unfortunately, this thalidomide, after giving birth to these children, they were disabled and deformed. So government and authorities then see that there has to be a regulatory arrangement that is going to undertake or going to oversee the conduct of testing of all these drugs. And also in that same year, the World Medical Association developed and indeed continues to review and adopt this declaration of Helsinki, which mainly says that all medical researches have to be conducted using a proper guideline, which was adopted in 1964 and also has been amended 6 times, and most recently the amendment which was conducted in October 28. So going back to the Nuremberg trial, there is standards that have been generated that were come up with, that is the Nuremberg Code. And this Nuremberg Code said that all medical researchers must follow ethical guidelines. So they have stated around 8 to 10 guidelines, among which is that all medical researchers must seek the informed consent of the participants. And this informed consent, that it has to be voluntary, that no patient or participant must be involved in these researches under compulsion. So they must voluntarily agree to enter into the researches. And also experiments must be rational, that all these complex researches and irrational or things that are ambiguous should not be conducted. And also experiment must be based on animal studies. Before you check your own researches onto human subjects, that research must pass through animal studies, whereby the safety of that research candidate must be evaluated, the efficacy must be evaluated, and also the possible side effects, the possible adverse reactions must have been determined before you even take those researches into the human subject. And also any experiment that can be conducted in humans should avoid suffering, must not inflict pain in the human subject. And also no experiment should involve excessive risk. So whenever you are going to conduct researches on human subjects, you must minimize the risk involved when it comes to administration of the drug candidate or a surgical procedure or whatever kind of intervention is going to be given to this patient. And also the degree of risk should be determined by importance of the problem. As we are all aware that in most research, when it comes to clinical intervention, sometimes we do loss benefit analysis. Sometimes the intervention we give to patients is not like it's safe, but when you look into that, the intervention is better than the diseases. So that risk benefit analysis should be conducted very well before you even put on into an intervention into the human subject. And also precautions should be taken to avoid against even the remote possibilities of injury. So as you are conducting this medical intervention in medical research, one of the ethics is that you must take precautions to minimize injury or disability or death, because most of these patients are unaware of the consequences or the outcomes that will come out of the researches. Most of them come with the mindset that this intervention is going to cure my own illness, it's going to take care of my diseases. They don't have an inkling or an imagination that this intervention may pose a lot of risk. That's why it's very important to explain the risk to the patients, to explain the clinical procedure, let them understand what they are taking themselves into, let them voluntarily participate in the researches so that if they see something that is out of the ordinary in the research, they can voluntarily withdraw from the researches themselves so that they can be safe at the end. So an experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. So it means whoever is going to be part of the research team must be part of the processes that those drugs or those interventions have been, the researchers were among from the beginning up to the stage whereby it can be applied into the human subject. And all those subjects should be able to end experiment at any time, just like I've said that they should have the right and the privilege that at any time they feel like they want to quit this intervention, they can go out of this research. And the scientists in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment at any stage should there be an unlikely result of injury or disability. Also, when we look into the informed concept, just like we said, it's a process that involves conveying accurate and relevant information about the study, that the patient must be made aware of the risk of the research. They must know the benefit of the research. And also they must be told, this is a standard intervention and we are trying to provide an alternative intervention. And also the procedures must be categorically stated it to them. They must be explained to them. These are the procedures. This is what we are going to do. For example, let's say if they are going to take the trial of a new drug, this is a drug you are taking. You are taking it before breakfast, an hour before breakfast, and you must take it on an empty stomach with water or with liquid. So all these procedures that if you take this drug, you must, it requires a drug that it must not be like you can take this drug and go to sleep. All these things you must explain to the patient clearly so that they understand what they are going through and the kind of thing they are going. And also answering questions. Some patients may be so curious, you have to give them the opportunity to ask questions like, what if this happens? Or I'm taking social intervention, or I'm taking this, how do I do about this? So all these things that the participant, the research lead must take this into consideration and also enable an informed decision so that at the end, they will be able to make their own decision. They must not be under compulsion. So some of the elements of consent is that competence. Is the patient competent to provide consent? Is he in his rational mind? Is he not under any compulsion? And disclosure, can the patient, is enough information provided to allow an informed decision? Because some of the medical researchers, you find out that the researchers could twist an information in such a way that the patient may not have an idea so that they can make an informed decision. So the researcher must disclose everything so that the patient could have the information and make an informed decision. And also comprehension. Does the patient fully understand what they are going to get themselves into? Then agree. Does the patient freely agree to participate, or they want to agree to participate in the study because of the, what do you call it, of the honorarium that is normally given to the patient? And also voluntarily. Is consent truly voluntary, like free of compulsion? And does the patient understand that they can withdraw at any time? Because some patients, they come with this mindset of like, how do I to go out of the research as if they are going to spoil the researches or something bad may come out to them. No, the patient has to know that at any time they can voluntarily withdraw out of the researches. And also there's one very key important. Before you even check your own medical research into the clinical stage, right immediately after the preclinical trial at the institution, there is requirement for the institutional review board, or in some institutions, they call them independent ethics research committee. What do this institutional review board do? What they do specifically is that, because the hallmark of this medical research ethics presentation is to conduct researches in a way that you bring a maximum benefit to the patient and also minimize the risk of injury and fatality that you bring to the patient. So in order to maximize this benefit and reduce the harm that could be caused to the patient as a result of this medical intervention, so after the preclinical researches, the research is not going directly into the clinic. It has to pass through the institutional review board. And what do this review board do? They are a committee that has been formed that are designated to approve, to monitor, to review any biomedical and behavioral researches involving human subjects with the aim to protect the rights and welfare of the research subjects. This institutional review board or independent ethical research committee, they are independent of the research organizers. They will sit down and critically review every stage, every procedure, every intervention, but their main aim is to protect the patient, to see that among this research procedure, there is nothing that is going to bring any harm or any injury, or something is not going to cause any death to the patient. And they are going to study that the procedure, how does the research minimize injury to the patient. And most of these independent institutional research committees, they mostly require some of the following documents: the trial protocol, the step-by-step procedure to which you are going to conduct your researches. They have to review every stage, and also the written informed consent form, the form that you give to the patient, like that states clearly whatever you are going to do, the kind of intervention, the duration of the study, and everything you are going to do that will make the patient sign that he has agreed, he has consented his will to partake in these researches. And also all the objects that will be coming during the researches, this committee will be following it up. And also even the subject recruitment procedures, because the recruitment of the research subject, as you have already know that there are inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. What criteria? What even governs the criteria for selecting particular kind of subject? For example, like now, there are some studies that if people want to include, they will say that any person, for example, let's say that you want to try a new diabetes, anti-diabetes medication or oral hypoglycemic agent. So like inclusion criteria that the subject must be diabetic, maybe must not have secondary complications, maybe the subject must not be on insulin injection. So like the inclusion criteria, maybe the subject must not be above 50 years. So this independent ethical research committee, they will review and study the ethical procedures to which even you recruit your patients, which makes hallmark of the investigation procedures. And also privacy. One of their key cardinal points is protecting the individual's privacy, respect for the person. Like they set very strict rules about data collection and data management. And also the records must be secure, and also you remove any information that will identify or will link any information to a particular participant. And also in the course of conducting this, one must be very aware of the state and national laws of the country or of the state that they are conducting these researches. So, and also there is a safety and when it comes to protection of clinical trial participants, the assessment of trial application should be made by competent authorities in order to ensure the well-being, safety, and protection of the persons who participate mostly in medical researches. and should also be in the best interest of all stakeholders, including patients, relatives, and also the other participants. So these are some of the Code of Medical Ethics and Guidelines. These are the things that have come up to the last revised Helsinki. The Nuremberg Code, the one that you have seen earlier, that you have to seek the patient informed consent, the procedure must be well explained. It was established in 1945, whereby we see that after 1945, now the Helsinki Declaration, whereby the World Medical Association now come adopted the Nuremberg Code and also incorporated and add other things. We also have other Denmark reports, ICMR quality assessment, and genetic human tissues, transplantation, up to the last one that was revised in 2008. So it means any medical student should put at the back of his or her mind that before you undergo any medical researches, you have to get yourself familiar with the conduct, the morals of conducting ethical researches, how to respect the patient, how to approach the patient, how to decide between what is good and what is bad. Because when it comes to medical research, good and bad is relative. What you think is good for one patient may be bad for another patient. That's why I will suggest that before you undergo any medical researches, you have to familiarize yourself with some of these declarations, some of these guidelines, especially the last revised one that was conducted in 2008, the Helsinki Declaration. I think when you check most of the scientific research papers, you find that whenever medical research, ethical research is involved, they will cut according to the Helsinki Declaration. So you must not partake in any medical research without studying and understanding the proper guidelines that will help and enable you conduct that medical research. And one of the last thing I want to mention before I go is that in any medical research, the first thing that comes into your mind, do no harm. Whatever you do, you make sure that it does not cause harm to the patient. And know that most of those research subjects, they are not aware of the risk and dangers of those researches. It's you, the researcher, that knows the consequences. They come happily thinking that when they participate in these researches, their own disease or their own problem will go. So you have to know that these patients are not aware of the dangers. You have to explain to them. Let them enter into these dangers, into these researches with their own consent. So I hope I have made some points, because this medical research is a very, very broad subject, and there are a lot of philosophical items into it, social, socio-cultural things into it, but I try to minimize and get the main concept so that we can benefit all of it. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much once again.
Okay, it seems like Aisha is still having network concerns. Thank you very much, sir, for the excellent session.
Okay,
We're very, very grateful for the time and for the concise lecture. Everything that you mentioned in the slides have been of great impact, and there are things that we'll hold on to dearly when we begin to embark on our own research journey. And we'll make sure that we refer to constantly so that we do not breach any ethical codes of conduct. And to everyone that is viewing, both here and on the YouTube live, please, if you have any questions, feel free to send your questions in now. You can ask your questions now, so we'll forward them to Professor Salisu. I hope you all are not shy to send in your questions, because ethics is something that's very important.
You can ask any question. I'm listening.
Please make sure you send in your questions now.
I could explain more things in a more clearer term.
We've taken the month in total to train everyone that is present here and all the members that joined in research. So it would be a shame if you people overlook the part of ethics and we have to look for bill money for you people. So please make sure you ask your questions now. Okay, I can see one question from the YouTube live. Oh, do you have a question?
Okay.
Alaidin Ismail.
بس كده شوف المعقول تمام.
Alaidin Ismail. Okay, I think he unmuted himself by mistake. I have a question here from someone on the YouTube live, and the person is asking, when it comes to conducting research, if there is an agreement between the researcher and the subject, but the agreement goes against the code of ethics, but they have it written down like in a legal document, is the researcher still allowed to go ahead and conduct the experiment, or does he have to still obey fully the codes that have been given ethically?
Yeah, actually, when it comes to conduct of clinical researches, it cannot be between the researcher and the subject alone, because there are a lot of parties that have to be involved. For example, like now, because that's why all this Helsinki Declaration, the Baltimore Report, and the Nuremberg Code, it's expected before you go to even the stages whereby you have to involve human subjects. Your candidate, drug candidate, or your intervention must have passed the preclinical trial stages. After that, you need to apply for the ethical clearance. So in some countries, there are set ethical clearance, there is set ethical research committee, and there are some national health research ethics committee, and there are some institution review board, and there are some independent ethical research committees. So the thing is not just like to go and have agreement between a researcher and the patient. After this research, you must pass through all these committees. Number one, if the research is coming from the university, after the conduct of the successful finding of the preclinical research results, the researcher will apply to the institution review board in the university or in the college. Just like what I have mentioned in my slide, the institution review board now will study your own research protocol. Research protocol involves the step-by-step research procedure, including the kind of patients you want to recruit, the males, the females, the age, the duration of the research. After everything, even the informed consent. And the informed consent will carry information that will tell the participant, this is what I am going to do to you. Have you agreed? You are going to involve in this research for so years or for so duration. You are going to take, like you are going to outline everything. After you have done the informed consent, the institutional review board now will study it. If the institutional review board finds it, yes, it's okay, then now you go and apply for the state ethical research committee. Mostly is governed by a medical doctor or a chairman or a CMD of a particular hospital. So the committee now will call you. Now you tell them step by step how you are going to conduct these researches, the kind of patient you want, the duration. In fact, if it's a drug, you must tell them the chemical constituent of the drug, the likely target site, the active component, what are the likely adverse reactions that may arise. So you tell them now everything. Before you even get contact with the patient, This, you are doing all this before you even get contact with the patient. If they approve your research, now you have to apply for the Health Research Ethics Committee, the national. They will register so-so researcher is now conducting a research at so-so. Is it at a single point or a multiple point? Because some researchers, you conduct them in one hospital, some in multiple hospitals across a state or across a country or across a continent. After they have registered, then now you take the approval to the CMD of the hospital. Now the CMD will call the health department of the particular institution now. You clearly outline and convince them again. It's after all this tussle now, they'll say, okay, now, here is a clinic. Come with your team. So start recruiting your patients. So then when you recruit the patient, you have to take enough time to explain to them, this is what we are going to do to you. This is how long it's going to take. These are the likely outcomes, but you are free. You can do this research. If you see that you cannot do it at any time, you can quit. So the agreement is not between you and the patient. The agreement has to pass through stages. Why all these procedures? Is to protect the patient, because the patient does not know what is being given to him. So some people must protect him. That's why if you go back into my slide, you see the Nuremberg trial, whereby that medical doctor just get twins and started giving them drugs. Look at the other hospital in US, whereby some patients are even given cancer cell lines to see how their own bodies may reject the cancer cell lines. Because if these ethical procedures have not been set, a doctor in a hospital may just decide, why can't I try this on this patient and see what will be the likely outcome? That's why it's not allowed for a doctor to try any drug in a patient. And should that doctor or any researcher try a particular drug on a patient without following these guidelines, if the thing comes out, he may be tried, he may be jailed. In fact, he can face the full wrath of the law. So it's not agreement between you and the patient. The agreement must pass through all these procedures. I have made some sense into your question.
Yes, sir, that was a remarkable answer. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
We have one more question again from the YouTube live. Giving respondents money, does it affect ethics in medicine? If you pay your respondents money for their participation?
Can you come back again? My speaker is very low. I can't hear you well.
Yes, sir. Giving the respondents money for their participation in your research, does it affect the ethics of the research?
No, it doesn't. In fact, it even improves the quality, because sometimes this your subject might not be people who are well-to-do, and sometimes they may be coming maybe from a very far place, and the money you are giving them may serve as a token to include their own transportation. That can motivate them so that they can come on time. Maybe if they are taking a bus, now they can charter a car so that if it takes them 1 hour, they can come in 20 minutes time. And sometimes maybe the time it will take them to spend in the hospital, maybe they can spend 3, 4, 5 hours, and they may need something to eat. So from that money, at least that you give to them, they may be able at least to relax, transport themselves, to feed, and it's just an honorarium to encourage them so that to participate, so that you won't have problems like they are coming late, they are not coming on time, or they have not eaten food. A lot of things is just to stimulate them. So I think that one does not, you are not bribing them to participate. This money is coming after you explain clearly, this is what we are going to do with you. When they voluntarily accept, that's when now you bring money as a consent. Not like, I will pay you this money to participate in this research. Still, if you pay them money, you entitle them to participate in the research without their own consent. If something happens, still you will be held responsible.
Thank you very much, sir, for the answer. We have one more question. We have one more question from the Zoom meeting. That is from Hassan Abdullahi. And Hassan Abdullahi is asking, how do you go about research presentation that will involve pictures of the research participants? Say, for example, a picture of a patient with a particular disease. Thank you, sir.
Okay. How do you go about research presentation?
How do you go about a research presentation that will involve pictures of the research participants? Say, for example, a picture of the patients.
Yeah, I get it. So actually, if you will post the picture of any research participant, you must take that participant consent. That's why if you just go and take someone's pictures and put it whether in an article publication or in a research presentation, and accidentally they come to see that picture, they can show you and even demand some things out of you. So, but in the conduct of research, in the consent form, you can ask the patient that, are you willing, do you agree, or won't you mind if I put your picture in my presentation? Would you mind if I put your picture in my article? Maybe if you say, yes, I don't mind, but don't put my eyes. That's why sometimes you see some people, they can cross some people's eyes. But you must take the consent. See, not even picture. Even if somebody's body part, you must take their consent, because you cannot just go and take somebody's thing and use them without their own consent. It's just like, even if you are going to copy picture from the internet, you must give credit, you must give source. Where do you get it? Because even if in your presentation that you just go and copy one picture and put it, you must put source. And even that source, if it requires you to write an email to the original owner of the picture that I intend to use your own picture on my presentation, if they acknowledge, then you go ahead. That's why, especially we in Africa, we don't know the consequences of just getting picture of anything and putting in your own presentation. But any person or any organization that sees a picture, its picture, not even a person's picture, that you use without their own consent, they still have the right to sue you. So it's always advisable to seek the consent of your own patient if you want to use any part in your own presentation or your own article publication or any other thing.
Thank you very much, sir. We have one question also from YouTube now, from Ezekiel Olalumade. And he's asking, what is a preclinical trial and what does it mean to pass a preclinical trial?
What is a preclinical trial?
Yes, sir. And what does it mean to pass a preclinical trial?
Okay. When we say preclinical trial is a series of researches that you conduct on animals before you go to the human subject. For example, all these drugs that we are developing in the laboratory, their aim is to treat human diseases. That is the main essence of, that's why I'm taking drug research. The main aim of drug researchers is to develop a drug candidate that you can use. That you can use to treat. Hello, are you with me? The aim of drug researchers is to develop a drug that you can use to treat human diseases. But you can't just go to the lab and develop a drug and you just come and start using it on humans. That's why a preclinical, that is before clinical research testing must be conducted. And even that preclinical research, it has stages. Number one, after you have gotten your drug candidate, that's what you call acute toxicity testing. The first thing that you do, you have to test the toxicity of that drug candidate on animals. For example, why do you do toxicity testing? To see at what dose this drug can cause injury to humans or can cause death. And after you conduct acute toxicity testing, your drug has passed the acute toxicity testing, because even if it has scale, it has non-toxic, slightly toxic, moderately toxic, and highly toxic. So after this research, you see that your drug belongs to the non-toxic drug category, Then now you move to the second stage of the preclinical drug testing, which involves the call subacute toxicity drug study. In subacute toxicity, you still restudy the effect of that drug over a prolonged period of time, whereby you test the effect of the drug on liver function, on kidney function, on heart function, maybe on physiological parameters, on electrolytes, on many things. Maybe you can even conduct histopathology, renal histopathology, immunohistochemistry, histopathology of the heart tissues, of the lung tissues, of the liver, kidney tissues. You see the effect of the drug on the histopathological changes of all these things. Apart from biochemical study, hematological study, why you do all this is to make sure that drug, when it goes to the human clinical trial, is not going to cause danger to the humans. After you have conducted some IQ, then you move to the third stage, where they call the chronic study. Now you chronically study the effect of this drug over a prolonged period of time. It's after your drug has passed this preclinical trial, which I have said earlier, it has three stages: the acute toxicity stage, the subacute, and the chronic study stage. After it has met all the criteria, then now you come and formulate your drug. And remember, preclinical trial, you do not conduct it only once. You will do it and repeat it and repeat it. It has to be consistent. You have to be producing consistent results, because you don't just go and get one hit like, my drug reduces blood glucose, because I have conducted almost 3 clinical stages with 1 clinical intervention. When I first preclinically tried my drug, I have to try it almost 5 different times. The drug works, but the effect of the drug is the one that I could not control. So it's after 5 consistent preclinical trials, that's when I was able to come up with a very consistent formulation. And from that formulation, I have to undergo 5 different preclinical trials of all these 3 stages involved before I even begin thinking of taking my drug to the clinical trial stages. And let me tell you, if you are not ready, you do not do your research, or don't even think of going to ethical clinical trial. Because in clinical trial, if you make one mistake, that will be the end of your career. And not online, you may end your career in jail. Because once you cause a single harm to the patient, the whole world will come at you. That's why you have to get the right team, and you can never do it alone. Because if you are drugged, you have to involve a pharmacologist, you have to involve an epidemiologist, a scientist, and if you are researchers involved, let's say diabetes and hypertension and cardiac diseases, you have to involve endocrinologists, diabetologists, you have to involve cardiologists. Maybe if you are researchers, even involve behavioral or psychological therapists. You have to involve all the team. You do not do that research alone. And sometimes you even bring an independent person into the team. Why do you do all this? You maximize the benefit and minimize the risk of injury. So after passing all these stages, that's when now you will begin the cycle of institutional review board, state ethical research committee, national health ethical research committee. Then now you come back to the hospital, then you sit down and start the recruitment processes. So it's a very tedious research. That's why you see in Africa, you hardly hear about of clinical drug researchers, because it's not that people cannot do it, but it's time consuming. And sometimes before you take your drug into the clinical research, it can take you a minimum of 3, 4, 5, up to 10 years. And we don't have the patience. And some do not have the resources. And remember, like in Nigeria, if you are going to conduct a drug research, after all those independent review boards and committees, you have to go and apply through the regulatory agency, National Agency for National Agency for Food and Drug Administration Control. So it will have to be monitoring your drug in its laboratory. at the same time as you are conducting those researches. That's why it's a very tedious process. And before you do it, you have to at least be part of a research clinical trial before you even think of conducting your own research clinical trial. So there are a lot of things involved. That's why I try to minimize in my own presentation to give you the things you need at these stages so that at least it prepares your mind. Once you come to the bigger stages, then you can understand the thing. And one thing I want to add to you, please, in Africa, our own medical doctors mostly, they go back to the bench and only prescribe a routine. No, doctors should fully participate themselves on all these medical research medical researches, because doctors are in the best position to conduct this medical research, not people coming from outside the mainstream medical community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer, sir. That was remarkable and well detailed. Thank you very much. I think we have more questions here from the chat box. There's a question here which says, what if the facility head retracts the permission after ethical approval? Can I change the study sites? Do I have to go back to the ethical committee?
Yeah, the facility may have the right to revoke your, to even stop your trial. Because remember, they must have noticed something that does not go along their own ethical standards. Because as I've told you, sometimes ethical standards is a relative term, because there are some cultural standards, traditional standards, because how you approach a participant in one tribe or religion or community may differ from how you approach another one in another community. So they may have the right to stop it. So, and they will definitely give their own reason for stopping that research. So for you to change another facility, you have to go back, because everything you have been done is being recorded. So you will definitely have to go, because in the ethical research committee, you are not just going to tell them that I'm going to undergo research. You have to tell them the location, the hospital setting, the participants, where you are drawing them. Are they coming from the hospital? Are they coming from the state? Are they coming from the local government? What kind of people are they? What are the inclusion criteria? So if you are changing the research facility, you have to go back and explain to them why you are changing, so that and give them the reason why you are now seeking approval for another facility. If they feel, they become convinced, because when it comes to ethical research approval, it's just like project defense. You have to convince me what you are doing, you have scientific backing. What you are doing, you have thorough understanding. What you are doing, you have a complete knowledge of what you are doing. You have to convince the committee beyond reasonable doubt against the odds and against the benefits. So if you are changing a facility, you have to go and present to them, this is why you are changing, this is what is happening. If they see the problem is not coming from you, you are not breaking any cultural standard or state laws, they may decide to approve your change of facility. But if they see something, they say, no, we may not approve you. And if mistakenly one ethical committee disapprove you, I doubt if another committee will approve you, because they will go back to your previous record. It's just like a medical doctor. How many successful surgeries you have, that will determine your next surgery. It's just like pilots. How many successful takeoff and landing you have. So your success when it comes to conducting clinical research will determine another. That's why you always try and work according to the guidelines. I involve experts. It's possible they can change it for you, but you must have a very sound and valid reason before they change that for you.
Thank you very much,
Hello?
sir, for that answer.
Yeah.
What ethical guidelines do you follow? I'm sorry, did you hear the question? The question was, what ethical guidelines do you follow regarding online questionnaires or surveys?
Ethical guidelines. You still, yes, ethical guidelines. The research, it depends. There are some researches that do not involve clinical intervention. There are some research, they are more of like just to get data from people, because those ones, they do not have much constraints. For example, like researches that you put out online questionnaires, of course, you can read, because this declaration of Helsinki, it involves almost everything, because there are some guidelines to conduct social researches, medical researches, and the thing about online is about data safety. So one of the ethical guidelines when you are going for especially online survey, you have to respect data privacy. Because if you do not study the guidelines on how to respect the participant data, that's why your problem may come. So it's always advisable that whenever you are going to conduct whether an in-house clinical surveys and online surveys, you have to read more about research data privacy. Because as they say, data is gold now. You can't just take someone's data and expose that data to the world. So there are a lot of ethical guidelines. But one of the things, whoever you are going to collect their data, whether online or whether in physical, you have to still get an informed consent. The informed consent, it could be in a form of written document. These are the guidelines of my research. You involve this, I'm going to do this with your data. You have to explain to the patient whatever you are going to do with their data, so that once they consent, then they can go ahead. But if they do not consent, you can't take on their data. So the ethical guidelines, they are there, but they are milder than the one if you are going to conduct clinical intervention. For example, like online survey, you don't need ethical clearance in some parts of the world, because it's something that you are just doing it online. Some people may choose to give you right information or wrong information in that one. So, but the ones that you are going to do them physically, I think that one, it is going to involve human subjects physically, you need clearance.
Thank you very much for that answer, sir. I think we just have one question left, and then we can wrap up this session. This question is from, This question is from Mohammed Gedi. The question is there an exceptional situation where consent would be impossible or impractical to obtain for such research?
Is there
an exceptional situation in cases where consent will be impossible or impracticable to obtain for research?
It depends. Actually, consent, mostly you get consent from the participants, not from the authority. So, and the consent, before you get consent, you must have identified your own target group. Because if you are going to do research, let's say you are going to do research on hypertensive patients, the criteria that you outline you say you need people from 35 to 45 years of age. That's one. You must have people that must not develop complications. Maybe people that are only on single oral antihypertensive drugs. Maybe even the antihypertensive drug you can classify it on beta blockers. So you have specified the target participants you want. So you are going to get the consent from the people you already have outlined. So in such cases, what if you now come across a patient who is mentally retarded, but the patient now has met all your inclusion criteria to be part of the study? The patient cannot consent because he cannot make sense of what is happening. So in such cases, you cannot get his consent as a person. So the only thing you can only get the consent from his representative, who could be a guardian, who could be a brother, who could be any other person. So it can be impossible to get the consent of that patient who cannot make a decision on his own self. Or if the participants are underage children, of course they may meet all your inclusion criteria, but they cannot take decision on themselves. So if you do not have, if they don't have somebody who can be representative, I can say it's impossible to, they meet all your criteria, but you can get it because they cannot consent. They are below the age of concession. So there are a lot of factors. It depends on what you come across in the course of your own researches. But of course, there are some participants that they can meet your own criteria, but they can say no. And maybe some doctors may even advise that this patient, despite having met your own inclusion criteria, is not advisable to participate in this your own research. I'm talking about researches that involve clinical intervention, not researches that you can just do survey, questionnaire, researches that you do a procedure, a clinical intervention, or any other thing.
Thank you very much, sir, for that answer. I think that's all with the questions. We've already answered a lot of questions and we've already gone beyond the time limits that we scheduled for the ethics session. And I'm sure we've already taken more than enough of your time as well. Thank you very much, sir. We're very, very grateful for the time that you have taken to explain this in detail to all our members that are present here. We're very grateful. I think I'll hand over now again to Aisha so that we can introduce the speaker for the second session. I believe your network should be better by now, Aisha.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a very wonderful session. I hope now you can hear me clearly.
Sorry, Aisha, I think your network is still failing. The network is still cracking and we cannot hear clearly. So maybe before it settles, I will just introduce the second speaker. That's Dr. Daniel. Dr. Daniel is already here with us for the second session, which is titled How to Get Started as a Medical Student. Dr. David Daniel Otogo is a multiple award-winning researcher that has published more than 30 scientific works in the international peer-reviewed scientific journals. He has made several scientific research presentations in and out of Africa, including the International Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology, FIGO World Congress in Sydney, Australia last year. His research work on dementia in Africa was presented at the 14th World Congress on the Vascular Dementia in the United Kingdom in March 2022. He currently serves as the chairperson of the African Healthcare Student Summit, AHESS. He is one of the 4 vice presidents of the International Student Surgical Network Global. He is passionate about safe and accessible surgical care, reproductive health and rights, public healthcare approaches in Africa, and clinical and experimental researches, among others. He is a medical doctor currently at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, Nigeria. You're welcome, Dr. Daniel. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I'll be turning on my camera briefly. I'm trying to share my screen and being quite dramatic right now. I don't understand what's happening. Please give me 2 minutes. Let me send my slide to the director. Yes, my screen is messing up, please. 2 minutes.
That's all right.
Okay. While we're waiting on that, I think I can begin. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. So very important thing about the topic today is how to get started in research as a medical student. I think what would happen is I would send the slides to the director and he would forward it to those present subsequently. However, if I'm permitted, I would want this to be a conversational session. How did I get started as a medical student? I got started as a medical student in research through the help of other senior colleagues. And mind you, these senior colleagues were not from my teaching hospital. So what advantages or what did these senior colleagues give me to help me get started? First is, there are already people that are going to help you and are willing to help you, but you need to step out there to reach out to them. Oh, sorry, my camera is off. Can you see me clearly? Okay. So firstly, there are those who are already going to help you, but you need to be able to reach out to them for them to know you need this help. As a medical student, my professors in my hospital were advocating for research, but they were not really out there to help us. I reached out to the current Nigerian Medical Association chairperson for Plateau State, as he was a lecturer in my hospital, in my teaching hospital, not my hospital, I don't own a hospital, in my teaching hospital. And the lecturer was able, and this lecturer, who is now the NMA chairman here, did something. He gathered a group of journals, print journals, and he gave them to me. One advantage people don't know about journals is journals don't just publish researches, they also teach you how to conduct researches. Please, are you hearing me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My laptop was messing up, so I'm using the iPad now. Okay, journals also teach you how to conduct researches. So if you have a journal, if you go to the first page of your journal, under the instructions section, there is often a detailed first 5 pages that explains different types of research papers and how to do them. There's something I want you to realize. To say you've conducted a research involves 2 main phases based on the type of research you are doing. There's the searching phase, and then there's the research writing phase. It's important that these 2 different parts are differentiated, yet done optimally. So if you are working on the researching phase, you need to do the things that the previous speaker was speaking about. Get an ethical clearance. You need to make a questionnaire. You need to be able to obtain data, analyze the data, organize it, and report it. That's the researching phase. Now, the research writing phase is trying to make that. I'm uploading the presentation now. I'm switching to a different, someone that was asking if there's a presentation. I'm uploading the presentation shortly. I'm switching to a different device, please. Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay. As I was saying, in the research writing phase, the advantages, the ways to do this can be gotten from the instruction section of a journal. I would not just advise to use one journal, because journals usually write according to their preferences, and different journals have different preferences. Oh, please just give me 2 minutes. I'm signing in with a different Zoom and I'll upload the screen now, please. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry for the interruption. Seems I would have to continue without the slide. My gadgets choose today to be unfriendly to me. I'll do my possible best to make this as communicative as possible. And afterwards, I would share the PowerPoints to everyone and answer any questions you may have afterwards, please. I apologize. The slides were painfully made, but now inaccessible. So I'm going to break this down as much as possible. As a medical student, we need to be able to move from where we are now to where we need to be. How do you get from where you are now to being a researcher? First, you need to want to be a researcher. So in wanting to be a researcher, you need to be able to do two main things. You need to be able to conduct a research, and you need to be able to report your research. If I heard the previous speaker well, he spoke about conducting a research. I don't know if I'm getting that right. I'm here to tell you also how to report your research and how to go further in research writing. If you look into a journal, printed or online, the first few pages have instructions on different types of research papers. They go as far as telling you how to write these papers, what to put in them, what not to put in them, how many words are needed per international standard, and how to even do a referencing. They go further to give you examples of referencing systems, Harvard, Vancouver, APA. They explain how each of these references are written, and then they give very applicable examples. Furthermore, if you are to work with a journal, you should know that this specific journal is going to be giving you data for itself. So if you were working with the International Journal for Medical Students, IJMS, the one run by IFMSA, they will tell you things like short communication should not be more than 500 words, and references in a short communication should not be more than 5 references. However, there are other journals that have variations to this instruction. So there are other journals that have variation to these instructions. So what I'm saying is, when you are trying to learn how to write a research, it's important to learn with it's important to learn how to write these research papers from journals. However, try to consult different research papers to do this, different journals to do this. Oh, my laptop is not still working. Now, in writing a research paper, the first thing you need to know is you need to have a good literature review, and that's going to form your introduction. How do you write a literature review? You use something known as the funnel system. The funnel system goes from a wide pool of data to a streamlined pool where you currently are. For example, if you were conducting a research on practice of menstrual health hygiene amongst female medical students in Bayero University, Kano, for example, in your introduction, you would want to review your literatures from the general practice of menstrual health hygiene, the practice of menstrual health hygiene in Africa, to the practice of menstrual health hygiene in Kano. How do you do this? How do you get these data that are broad, Africa, and specific? Now, to be able to get this data, you need to what? Consult people who have done this research before so that they can guide you to sources online. So who are the people you meet? You have to meet people that run the International Journal of Clinical Research, International Journal of Medical Education, and such journals such as the Global Neurosurgery journals. They have links for you to be able to access videos that teach you how to start and conduct researches. These journals I've just mentioned also have links that can help you apply for research mentors. There is a group now in Africa known as the Afro PHC Youth Hub. Afro PHC Youth Hub also runs a research platform. It's the head of the Afro PHC executive team is Professor Musa Shabi. I could share his email with you subsequently. If you're interested in conducting universal health coverage researches in Africa, you can reach out to him and he can link you up with mentors. Another way you could actually start conducting a research is to attend webinars such as this one. And subsequently, you could also look for research teams to join. There are so many research teams. I think there was a research club. There's a research club in FAMSA that FAMSA, SCOMA FAMSA, they have a research club. You could actually join them. Now, the advantage to this is you may not be able to conduct researches yet, but by the time you join the pool of activities, you would be able to know where to get this research information, how to conduct these research processes, and how to become a researcher. So in my research story started from 2017 when we needed to transfuse a sickle cell patient whose PCV was 24%. According to what I had learned in physiology, a PCV less than 30% should require a transfusion. However, this patient who had 24% was not even showing any signs of the hellfire pain that they go through and also serious signs of crisis. This patient was being treated for something else and was feeling fine. And then when I asked why, my consultant told me, in our region, we don't transfuse sickle cell patients until they are less than 20%. In white countries, 30%. In their region, in their center, it was 20%. Such questions need to be answered. Most of our data we use for reference intervals are Caucasian data. So what did I do? I went to my professors. You can start by going to the professors in community medicine department and asking them for help and guidance on how to start conducting researches. A lot of them have small books and documents that can help you with this information on how to start conducting researches. At the end of this session, together with the PowerPoint I'm going to be sending, I'm also going to be sending 2 very key research documents that taught me how to start writing researches. I'm going to also be sharing them with the director, so you can send him your emails subsequently and he will send them to you. I'm unable to send the PowerPoints now because my laptop chose today to freeze. But then we're going to do something very exceptional on this call. I'm going to show you how to start conducting a research. So can anybody unmute their mic and give us a research topic or a research idea? And I'll tell you how to get from where that idea is to completion of that research. Anyone? Is there anyone that has any research topic or any research idea you would like us to use as our example on how to start conducting a research and who to meet pertaining that research topic or idea. You could, okay, I can see some running into the chat box. So I think I'll just attack the chat box then. Okay, so let's stop sending for now so that we'll deal with the ones that are here. Thank you. Now, prevalence of HIV in Uganda. The aim of this research is you are trying to understand how much the volume of people with HIV in Uganda. So who are the people you are to meet for this research? As a medical student, how are you able to research or conduct a research on the prevalence of HIV in Uganda? First thing foremost, you need to be able to what? Reach out to the NGOs in Uganda that deal with HIV. The person who asks that question, you could be taking notes. But if you have any question, you can ask when I'm done. Yeah. Now, the key people here is reach out to NGOs in Uganda that are dealing with HIV. Or you can go to the HIV center in your teaching hospital. You could speak to your community medicine professors, or you could go online to browse, to reach out to, there's an NGO known as People Living with HIV and AIDS, PLWHA. Yes. So such people would actually help you with this data. So you would find out that doing a research on the prevalence of HIV in Uganda will most likely be a retrospective study. So you'll be looking at over the past 5 years, has the prevalence increased? Over the past 10 years, has the prevalence increased? As a medical student, reviewing such amount of data is going to be burdensome. So first and foremost, you get ethical clearance from the required body, whose data you are going to be using. Then you can go with a friend or one or two of your classmates to meet your profs for guidance. Subsequently, you now assess this data. You now look at the yearly prevalence. When you look at the yearly prevalence, you can plot a graph, and then your research paper is going to be a research on a 5 years retrospective research paper on the prevalence of HIV in Uganda. And then you'll be able to say HIV has actually been increasing. This is due to an increase in incidence that might be accompanied by an increase in population or an increase in sexual activity. Then when you write your, when you get your results, you discuss it in comparison with your previously conducted literature review. Don't forget, to be able to do this study, the people you need to reach out to are your professors in community medicine, NGOs handling HIV in Uganda, and the hospital you are in. And then you can't go wrong. Knowledge and attitude of teachers towards inclusive learning. Inclusive learning, Chineke. Auntie Ada, please, can you unmute your mic and briefly just clarify what you mean by inclusive learning so that I'll be able to answer correctly, please? Hello? Dr. Ada, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Okay. Good evening. Please, inclusive learning, just shed like small light so that I'll be able to answer correctly, please.
Okay, it's basically allowing children with disabilities into the mainstream classroom instead of special education that they are given.
Okay, thank you so much. So now, as a medical student, you want to conduct a research on knowledge and attitude of teachers towards inclusive learning. To be able to do this, you would need to first look for a school for special students. Yeah. But if you don't want to go that far, you can just do it within your teaching hospital. No, within a secondary school close by. And how do you go about this? First, you approach the principal or the school authorities there. In such a case, your ethical clearance could come from your teaching hospital. Your ethical clearance could come from the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education in that region. Then when you reach out to the secondary school teachers, your questionnaire is going to have 3 aims or 2 aims, the knowledge and the attitude. And under knowledge, you can have 5 key questions. Under attitude, you can have 5 key questions. An example of such questions you have under the objective for knowledge is, Mr. Teacher, do you know what inclusive learning is? Look at people like me, I had to ask you. So when you ask them if they know what inclusive learning is, you now ask them, where did they get their knowledge of inclusive learning? Have they ever taught a student? Have they ever taught or learned in a class where people with disabilities were allowed? How do they rate their knowledge on inclusive learning? Good, fair, poor? You are now able to evaluate the presence of the knowledge. You're able to look at the quality of the knowledge, and you're able to look at you're able to grade the knowledge. There's something known as the Lancet scaling system. So I think that's not for me to say now, but you can use that to grade the knowledge. In the attitude, you can look at whether they are okay with it, whether they welcome the idea, whether they are indifferent. These are the things you evaluate on the attitude. So for such a research, you could go to a secondary school with about 10 questions per questionnaire with your clearance and share it for the teachers there. Now, the key people in such a study are going to be the admin staff of the secondary school, the people you get your ethical clearance from, and also your colleagues that are going to help you share the questionnaire. Such a research could be planned over a period of time and conducted in one day. And then what you now do is you organize and analyze your data, and then subsequently, you now compare the data you've gotten with internationally published papers already. And that's where you'll be able to make your discussion. For example, according to my research, I found out that 20% of teachers are okay with the idea of inclusive learning in secondary schools in Africa, in Nigeria, sorry. However, this is contrary to other researches that were conducted in southern or northern or eastern Nigeria, but is in keeping with studies that were conducted in East Africa, and things like that to help you make your discussion. That's how you run that research, yeah? The research on preconception care in Africa, Ibadan, as a case study. Dr. Lukman, ONG is calling out to you. Now, preconception care, yeah? To be able to conduct this study as a medical student, who do you reach out to? You reach out to your consultants in ONG. You reach out to your doctors in ONG. Oh God, I think I need to state this. Be careful when reaching out to consultants, because a lot of them will want to use you. They want to use you and they will not even want to give you any credit. In my final year, when I was rounding up my ONG, the head of department of ONG then wanted me to help him conduct a study. And then I was already very happy. I mean, I'm going to be publishing a paper with my consultant, my HOD for that matter. And then when I was leaving the office, he made a statement. He said, mind you, you are conducting this study and you are writing this research. A minute, please. Thank you. My laptop just chose to start working now. But I'll share the slide with the now. You're my HOD told me, mind you are conducting this study and writing this research for me. If you do a good job, I might choose to put your name as one of the authors in this research. Imagine such a thing. So you have to be careful when reaching out to consultants, especially in Nigeria. I don't really know if it's similar in other countries. So key people in this research, who do you reach out to as a medical student conducting a study on preconception care in Africa? You reach out to your HODs and residents in ONG department. You reach out to the neonatologists, yeah, for them to tell you, why are you reaching out to them? You're reaching out to them to ask them, please, if I want to get data, if I want to find studies concerning preconception care, where can I get it? Ma or sir, please, I want to design a questionnaire for preconception care in Africa, yeah? Although I want to specifically use Ibadan. So I'm going to be most likely using University College Hospital Ibadan. How do you think I can design this questionnaire? These are ways in which you can go about this study as a medical student. Preconception care in Africa, Ibadan as a case study. it can also be conducted in form of what is known as a meta-analytical review. So what do you do in a meta-analytical review? You, during your break time, you sit down with your laptop and your internet, you go to search engines online, you search for studies that have been published on preconception care in Africa that were published from Ibadan. You analyze all these papers. There are protocols for analyzing. You can use the Prisma protocol, yeah? Or you can use the Moose protocol. Sorry, that's not for this meeting, but there are protocols for analyzing so that you'll be able to score them. And then from these studies already published, since you're using Ibadan as a case study, you'll be able to say from the papers published in Ibadan so far, we've been able to see that preconception care in Africa is poor. Okay, the next study proposed by Dr. Michael Ofo, descriptive study of mental health status of infertile women in Nigeria. As a medical student, to be able to conduct this research, yeah, what you need to do is you need to highlight 3 key people. First, you need to speak to your ONG consultant to allow you give question. No, not the ONG consultant. Sorry. Yeah, ONG. No, not the ONG. The matrons. The matrons at the fertility clinic day. So you make your questionnaire, then you go there. When the matrons, when the ladies are sitting waiting to see the console, the matrons or the nurses or you can share your questionnaire for them. So it's important the matrons know. Your ONG consultant is important they know for 2 main reasons. 1, they'll take it personal that you're conducting such a research and you didn't involve them. 2, so that you at least pass your MB in ONG without you understand what I'm saying. Now, the point is the nurses, the ONG consultant, and your classmates. As a medical student, these are the 3 main people you need in conducting a descriptive study on mental health status of infertile women in Nigeria. The aim of these studies, is you want to evaluate their knowledge of mental health, because some people are depressed and they don't even know they are depressed. Yeah. So you want to evaluate their knowledge of mental health. Sorry, the light was poor over there. You want to evaluate their knowledge on mental health. You also want to go further to find out if they know how to seek help or when they're experiencing poor mental health conditions. Since you want to evaluate their mental health status, you would need to highlight points such as, do you usually have a low mood? Do you usually feel uninterested? Do you isolate? And things like that. You know, it's a fertility clinic, yeah? So these women are going to be there. They are going to be in that fertility clinic. So you can just ask the specific questions that are symptoms of poor mental health, yeah? And that way you'll be able to evaluate their mental health status. Infertile women in Nigeria, that's broad. So you can say infertile women in Auchi, Nigeria, Auchi, Edo State, Nigeria, infertile women in ATBU Teaching Hospital, Bauchi, Nigeria. But the whole of Nigeria, that study needs to be published in National Demography of Health Survey. That's quite large. As a medical student, you want to conduct a research study on mental health in child with HIV and AIDS. Now, most people, I don't know how to, I need to highlight a point. People that are born with HIV and AIDS over a period of time have better coping mechanism than people who contracted HIV and AIDS through whatever means possible. So if you want to evaluate the mental health status of a child with HIV and AIDS, it's important to do this study among teenagers. Why do I say teenagers? The teenage period is a period where, due to puberty, you start having people getting very matured from that 8, 9, 10. They start making decisions for themselves. They start understanding the consequences of things that happen to them. And then they find out that not because of an action of theirs, but because of an maybe careless action of their father or their mother, they have to live with a disease for the rest of their life in a community that stigmatizes against them and things like that. that age, the teenage adolescent age, is when you will find a lot of depression, a lot of trauma. So evaluating mental health status in children with HIV and AIDS is best done among adolescents. So you want to aim at what? Senior secondary school students. So as a medical student, again, what do? You cannot really go to a secondary school to share questionnaire for them to start ticking yes or no, whether they have HIV or not. I mean, their classmates are looking at the questionnaire. So you go to the HIV clinic, you look at the age distribution, yeah? Some HIV clinics, I know the Plateau Specialist Hospital in Jos has different HIV clinics for children and a different HIV clinic for adults. So you can just go to the children HIV clinic and share your questionnaire amongst people that fall within a specific age bracket. And then to evaluate this, you need to start evaluating symptoms of depression and anhedonia and the rest of it. But you have to put it in English in a way they understand. You can't be writing anhedonia, echinacea, and things like that. Now, I hope I was able to answer that. As a medical student, Dr. Danielle, how do you study the effect of COVID-19 on the cardiovascular system? The best way to study the effect on COVID-19 on the cardiovascular system will not be using a questionnaire. So how do you start conducting that research? You can start conducting that research by going online to research platforms such as PubMed, Scopus, ResearchGate, and Google Scholar. On these platforms, you are going to type in COVID-19 heart disease, COVID-19 cardiovascular system. All the research papers concerning COVID-19 and the cardiovascular system are going to come out. That's how you go about this. Then, if you want it to be a Nigerian-based study, you see which one was published in Nigeria. If you want it to be an African-based study, you would see which one was published in Africa. If you want it to be a global study, you see which one was published. All of them will fall into global study, basically. But that's how you go about conducting this study. So who do you meet? You meet someone who knows how to conduct a research review. Most professors now conduct research reviews, especially past researches that they themselves published. Yeah. So in conducting a research on the effects of COVID-19 on cardiovascular system in Africa, our advice, you reach out to a community medicine resident or consultant to teach you how to conduct a research review. How do you start this research? You start by going online to research platforms and typing in these keywords: COVID-19 heart, COVID-19 cardiovascular system, COVID-19 heart disease. Now, Dr. Hyacinthe sent in first trimester bleed. Okay, the questions are still coming in. First trimester bleeding. Dr. Hyacinthe, I think you should retype this question because first trimester bleeding, that's all. There is nothing to that. Are we looking at the prevalence? Are we looking at the incidence? Are we looking at the complications? Are we looking at the mortality, morbidity outcome? So maybe you should retype it, please. Dr. Babatunde Bale, I think it's Bale. Let me not spoil someone's name for enter trouble. Malaria vaccine in sub-Saharan Africa. How do you conduct this research on malaria vaccine in sub-Saharan Africa? There are very important things you need to understand. I was conducting a similar study, and then I stopped and I decided to wait till they finished the clinical trial before I continue the study. I'm currently conducting a study on malaria vaccine in sub-Saharan Africa. When it comes to vaccination, you are trying to look at vaccine hesitancy, and you are trying to look at vaccine equity. But the aim of this study needs to be clear. Are you looking at what exactly are you aiming at pulling out from this study? Is it the effectiveness? If it's effectiveness, it's too early for that. Is it the distribution? It's still too early for that. You can be looking at the perception and attitude, yes. So then you'll be able to make a questionnaire where you ask the common man, you look for a sample population, maybe a community, then you now look for a sample size within, you calculate a sample size within that population, and then you share a questionnaire that basically aims to highlight, hey, If I brought a malaria vaccine now, would you agree to receive it? Stuff like that. And then you'll be able to evaluate their perception and attitude of malaria vaccine in sub-Saharan Africa. So to be able to do this, as a medical student, I don't think you should go far. You could conduct this study among preclinical students, especially the 100 and 200 level and 300, because from 400 level upwards, many people will start giving educational answers. They will not give the raw answers. Yeah. Now, you conducting a Dr. Babatunde, I hope I was able to help your point. The effect of narcotic drugs on mental health of Makerere University students. This should be Uganda, yeah? Makerere, this Uganda is an elite university in Uganda. Dr. Atukunda. Now, if you want to research on the effect of narcotic drugs on mental health, how do you start this research? Who do you meet? You need to reach out to psychiatrists in the hospital. Most things concerning psychoactive drugs are best done by psychiatrists. So you need to reach out to the teacher that is teaching you guys psychiatry. There are usually ways that they make these questionnaires. For you to be able to do research on the effects of narcotic drugs, then you must have conducted this research amongst people who are taking hard drugs. And I don't think you can really share questionnaires for your classmates and ask them, are you taking weed? Are you taking marijuana? Are you taking bangis? And then they'll say yes. I think bangis is Swahili for weed. Anyway, now, the people you have to meet for this are the psychiatrists. Then you have to meet them boys. Them boys are a group of people who you know are smoking and obviously living the wildlife. You need to go with an ethical clearance because this is sensitive data. They need to know that their identity is not going to be revealed. Hence, there is not going to be a place for name or anything on the questionnaire. I'd best advise you use a Google form so that they can do it in their comfort without looking at your face. And then in the questionnaire, you need to ask, do you take any of these drugs? You list the common narcotics and you give them the opportunity to tick, then you can put others. If you give them the opportunity to just write the answer they want, it's going to be scattered. And then you have to do this and share it on the WhatsApp group amongst medical students or amongst students generally in Makerere University. That's how you go about the study on effects of narcotic drugs. Okay, am I coming towards the end? Oh, okay, the last one is prevalence of breast cancer. Okay, thank God. I'm near. Mental health in university students with sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease, mental health. This is a very bad thing because I know I had a senior colleague who has sickle cell. It was bad. He missed his exam because he was on admission. My group came to meet him. He wrote with us. He had stroke in the middle of the exam. He couldn't finish that MB. So he wrote a receipt. He didn't pass the receipt and now he's still there again. So this is a very, very, very important point to research on. Whoever wants to conduct this research, Dr. Vivian, I'll advise that when conducting this research in your questionnaire, you include the departments, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, or whatever department, so that we'll be able to evaluate the people with the poorest mental health that have sickle cell. What departments do they come from? These are another very wonderful points that you can get from the research you are conducting. As a medical student conducting a research on mental health in university students with sickle cell disease, how do you go about this? First and foremost, you need to know that you're not going to have a lot of people, because you would want to conduct this research in 1 or 2 universities. And many people with sickle cell disease are maybe out of 500 students in a university, they are not up to 100 that have sickle cell. So to do this, you need an ethical clearance because it's very sensitive information. You need to make your questionnaire direct. You need to highlight 3 major objectives. Under each objective, you need to put about 2 or 3 questions that will answer that specific objective. And then you now meet, you can meet these students directly like to collect their phone numbers, then share the Google form link with them and let them know that their personal details will not be collected in such a way that if 50 people fill it, you would not know which one is them, to protect what is known as their anonymity. To also be able to go about this, because it's going to be very, very hard to find students with sickle cell disease, you can go about this by conducting what is known as a meta-analytical review or a systematic review. How do you do this? You go online, you go to research search engines such as Scopus, Google Scholar, PubMed, and ResearchGate. And there you type in mental health, sickle cell, university. Or you can just write university, sickle cell health. And their researches are going to come down concerning the health of sickle cell students in different universities. If you want it to be in Africa, you can just put Africa at the end. Those are like the keywords. And then you can now go through all these papers and look at the data that has been gotten from all these papers, and you can bring this data together, and you're able to now write what is known as a systematic reviewed paper. A systematic reviewed paper is going to have more weight than a single research paper from just one university. So that's a wonderful way to go about it. That is how you can start from there. Yeah. Dr. Hassan Abdullahi, a literature review on antihypertensive effects of hibiscus sabdarifa. Zobo. Wonderful. And there is something about chilled Zobo now on Twitter. Conducting a research, a literature review is going to come off as a systematic review. And the answer I just gave Dr. Vivian is what would basically apply to you. But in a literature review, you want to make sure that no research you use is at least less than the past 5-10 years. Yeah, the latest maybe 10 years. So papers published in the last 10 years concerning antihypertensives and antihypertensive effects of Zobo, yeah, you can look into those. Or if you want, you can just throw it open. But for it to be a literature review, you are at least 10 years. But if you want it to be solid, the last 5 years, within the last 5 years, papers published within the last 5 years, that is how you'll be able to do your literature review. There is another search engine I'm forgetting. It's known as Frontiers. These search engines I'm talking of are research search engines. Frontiers, you can also click on Frontiers and search for these keywords. Dr. Stephen Ugu. As a medical student, how do you conduct a research on COVID-19 pandemic and diagnostic laboratory in Nigeria, role played and future preparedness? This is a very, 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 very wonderful research question. But then the question choke. You self-reason it. As a medical student, diagnostic laboratory, that's where you are going to hit a brick wall. So how many laboratories do we have in Nigeria? You have to start from there. So first and foremost, you have to find a way to reach the NCDC website to be able to look at which active laboratories are working on COVID-19 in Nigeria. And you won't really be able to travel to all these labs. So you need to speak with your pathology lecturers for them to help you with information or maybe contact of 1 or 2 labs close by that you can work with. And then you can use this topic. And at the end of this, you will now say maybe MVRI, Plateau State, as a case study. That is how you can go about this, Dr. Steven. So the people you would meet here are your pathology professors. You are going to need to go to the NCDC website. Then you're also going to look at the report of roles played by the laboratories in diagnosing, or whether people were not getting diagnosed, whether having a lab is a waste, and future preparedness. I don't really know how we can research on future preparedness now, but that is going to be more of an administrative presidential level of work. I think I'm 6 minutes past my time, so I'm going to talk faster. Sorry. Yes, Dr. Hyacinth, I can see you've revised your question. Thank you. Okay. Maternal and fetal outcome in pregnancy is complicated by early pregnancy bleeding in Cameroon. Very wonderful. Now, this is actually now very self-explanatory. So how do you go about this study? To be able to conduct this study, you need to also, Cameroon is actually broad. So I'm going to be working with Southern Cameroon. At least there I know they speak English. So you go to Southern Cameroon, and then you try and look for a big tertiary hospital there, yeah? And then this can be by early pregnancy bleeding in, you call the name of the hospital before you now put Cameroon. And then to now go further, you would now look at their data. It's going to be a retrospective research. To conduct this research is going to be a retrospective research. There are actually 3 ways to go about this, to start doing this research as a medical student. The first way is you look at their research record, you look at their maternal record, complications in pregnancy. All those who the complications in pregnancy was bleeding on their folders, you look at what stage was this bleeding. Was it in the first trimester? Yes. Did the mother die? Or did the mother lose the pregnancy? Or did it end well? You understand? Now, this is a bit critical. This is a bit hectic to do. So the second way you can do this is you can make a questionnaire online and beg your consultant and the nurses to fill it. And you can even beg consultants and nurses in order. Nurses usually rotate. So all the nurses can fill it because they usually rotate through the department. So, but for consultants and doctors that are specifically in O&G, they can fill it. So that's how you can start going about this research for this specific one. And your questionnaire should highlight the fact that during your time in the O&G department, how would you rate, what is the percentage of, what is the prognosis, good, fair, and poor for women that came with early pregnancy bleeding? Yeah, you can put your question in this pattern. You can go further to ask, were there other complications that worsened it, such as pre-existing chronic disease? Then your next question can be, was multiple gestation that was associated with early bleeding have poorer outcomes than singleton gestation? So that way you can go about this research. And to start it, you don't really need much people and much approaching to go about this. The third way is just to conduct a systematic review online. I hope I've been able to answer your question, Dr. Hyacinth. Dr. Abdulrahman Bello. I think I need to be fast. People need to go and break their fast. Use of natural phytochemicals in treating neurological disorders. Now, basically, this is me assuming I know what phytochemicals are. Okay, I'm going to stop. Dr. Abdulrahman Bello, if you're on the call, please can you briefly unmute yourself and just roughly tell me what phytochemicals are so that I could answer more comprehensively, please. Dr. Abdulrahman Bello. I don't think he's on the call. Ouch. Okay. So I'm assuming I don't know what phytochemicals are, and I don't want to assume. So I'm just going to say, okay, I know what natural phytochemicals. Okay, now these are going to be plant extracts, yeah? So now the use of natural phytochemicals in treating neurological disorders, basically herbs. I think this is now shifting us towards herbs. And to be able to conduct this study, you would need to go to a community where there are no much surgical provisions and top drugs. And then you would need to now share questionnaires for them. But this is going to be a critical study. So as a medical student, I may not advise you to conduct this study, but it is not impossible to do. Yeah. But as I have limited knowledge on this, I'll move to the next question quickly so that we can close. Yeah, herbal medicine from plants. Yeah. Okay. There's something known in Abuja. I don't know, those people that are Nigerians. I don't know if you've ever heard of Baba Aisha Herbal Medicine. I usually see them in Jos and Abuja, Baba Aisha Herbal Medicine. Now, for you to conduct a research on herbs, you need to have knowledge on herbs. And mostly if you meet one or two people that are already like selling herbal drugs, they might not be objective with you. They would want to be like somewhat subjective to favor their business. So you need to be able to know who their patients usually are, and then you need to ask their patients. So how do you do this? You go to a community, and then you share a questionnaire for them. And you can do this as a community medicine project. And when you share this questionnaire for them, a questionnaire could be, do you patronize herbal medicine or modern medicine? If you patronize herbal medicine, what condition are you treating? And what was the outcome of the conditions that you treated? Did it end or did it get worse? And then you will now be able to streamline the ones that had neurological conditions like stroke. Did they get better? Those that were having neurogenic bladders, those who were having spinal cord compression, paralysis from accidents and things like that, did they get better? And then you would now be able to like have your answers. But the thing with this method is you are going to have other research data that are useful but are not useful to this your research. Yeah. And if not, you just have to walk into the community and go from house to house to see those with neurological disorders and ask if they sought for help. That's why I say it's a kind of a hard study to conduct. Subsequently, you could go online and search for people that have conducted similar studies and try and make a systematic review of it. Now, yes, you can carry out a systematic review on your topic concerning the COVID-19 pandemic and diagnostic laboratory. Dr. Stephen Ugu, you answer yes, you can carry out a systematic review on it. As a matter of fact, I would even advise you carry out a systematic review because trying to go from lab to lab will be hard, and focusing on one laboratory might not be a bad idea, but it might be least equipped in comparison to another laboratory. And then you would now have the problem of having a similar study published somewhere else in your country, having different results from you. And then you now have to start defending your paper. So a systematic review is more broadband. And a systematic review is a more solid paper than an analytical review. There is a grading on importance on like strength of a research paper. Dr. Alzoi favor to everyone. As a medical student, how can I carry out a study on prevalence of breast cancer in Nigerian men? You need to go to the oncology department in a tertiary hospital. That's what you need to conduct such a study. A tertiary department, an oncology department in a tertiary hospital. Basically, many men that have any breast swelling usually hide it. They don't come out openly. So to be able to conduct this study, you need to talk to your consultant in the oncology department. I know they have a very wonderful oncology department in Ahmadu Bello University, Nigeria, in UNN. I think also, okay, our oncology department here in ATBU is gynae oncology, but you need to look for a place that has general oncology. Then you speak to the consultant there, and then so that the day that a case comes in, your consultant or the oncological specialist nurse can give that person your questionnaire to fill. And at the end of the day, you would come and ask them, please, did anyone fill my questionnaire? That is one. If you want to look at the quality of life of these men that have breast cancer or breast tumors rather. However, if you are looking at the prevalence, you have to do a retrospective study. So you look at their record, their oncology record. Over the past 10 years, how many patients have they had every year? And how many of these patients have been men? So you report your study saying, in the past 10 years, 500 patients have come in with breast cancer. 25% of these patients have been men. 10% had very poor outcome. 90% had, 10% had good outcome. 90% had very poor outcome. That's because breast cancer is worse when it's in men. It's worse in men than in women. The prognosis is usually poorer because they present late. That's how you'll be able to conduct this study. So it's a retrospective study. So you're going to need to look at their medical record. So as a medical student, how do you go about this? You go about this by reaching out to your oncologist, the oncology doctor in your hospital, the oncology consultant or resident, and then they can tell you, yeah, you can go, they'll tell you one or two tricks. Then you write to your ethical committee, promising them that the identity of the patient will not be revealed, only the gender you are going to be using and stuff like that. So I think I've come to the end of the questions on research ideas you have and how to start going about them as a medical student. Now, 3 important things. you need a research mentor. My research mentor is Professor Oladipo Shitu. He was he's a professor of obstetrics and gynecology from Ahmadu Bello University. He's currently the provost of the Health Science College in Otupo, Benue State, Nigeria. He took it upon himself to always make sure that my early papers were up to date. Before he started mentoring me, my first 3, 4, 5 papers submitted were all rejected. Yeah. So in the end, when he reviewed my results and he reviewed my papers, he said, the problem is not in your research, the problem is in your research writing. For some other people, their problem might not be in their research writing, it might be in the research. But you need a mentor. And when you have a mentor, please don't disturb him every time, Jesus. Don't disturb your mentor every time. At times, I'm usually scared to mentor people because they message me every day. They're like, sir, let's choose a topic. So we've chosen a topic. Please, let's write the introduction. The last group of people I mentored, they were very hardworking. But there was a specific person that I literally conducted his research for him. And I didn't really think he learned a lot from that, you see. Professor Shitu helped me with one research. More like he reviewed it, I'll write it, he'll review it, he'll cancel it, I'll write it. That research got published like in flying colors when he let it go. But after then, subsequently, other research papers I sent to him, you would notice I got better. So you should try and push yourself. Then you can send your research works to your mentor to help you proofread and help you correct. If you have a mentor, you can ask your mentor to please explain to you how an introduction is written, explain to you how a discussion is written. And then from this explanation, you should try yourself to be the best you can, and then give them the feedback for them to review the papers, not allowing them spoon feed you. Most people have like other domestic problems. Sorry I've spoken so much. I really prepared the PowerPoint I'm going to be sharing with the director to send to you is going to basically highlight how to start writing a research paper, how to, when you start, how do you know which research paper is for which? Based on the research ideas you have, what paper is it you are meant to write? So how do you start going about this? What do you include and what do you exclude? That's what is inside the PowerPoint. I'm also going to be sharing 2 documents with him. The 2 documents are going to be highlighting tricks to help you write your own research paper, tricks to help you become a research writer flawlessly. But you have to be patient enough to read it. I think one of them is about 50 pages, but it's just the first 3, 4, 5 pages that you might need. So please, any questions? Any questions, please? You are welcome. Everyone in the chat box, you are welcome.
Very much for the I hope my network has better.
Sorry, whoever is speaking, you're cracking. I can't really hear you. Okay, someone just asked a question. Can one start writing research papers as early as 100 level? That's first year. Yes, you can. There is this famous pharmacist, Okereke Favor. As at his 200 level, when he was rounding up his 200 level, he had already published about 27 research papers. So yes, you can. Dorcas Adebowale, I hope I've been able to answer your question. Okay, Brenda Poker, you asked, well, I mentioned one point. Okay, the first point is mentorship. The second point, oh God, sorry, thanks for the reminder. The second point is having a team. Yeah, having a team. So you could, not like THEME, like having someone you can work with, someone that can keep you on your toes. So if you want to start writing research as a medical, if you want to start conducting research and writing research papers as a medical student, it's going to be very valuable to you to have a friend or a senior colleague who is on this journey with you. This can be someone who is learning to write. This can be someone who started learning before you, and people are like conducting this research together. This person can tell you, hey, we were meant to write the introduction together, or I'm writing the introduction and writing the methodology. I'm going to round up the introduction by this evening. I hope you'll be done with the methodology. They help keep you on your toes. This is another very important point. Have someone that you are able to like work at par with. Have someone maybe online in another school, something that you're able to evaluate your standard with. Yeah, that's the second point. The first one is a mentor. The second one is having a team. This can be one or two people that you would work with. Thank you so much for the reminder, Brendan. Dorcas, please, I hope I've answered your question. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm sorry for talking too much. I'm sorry for my laptop messing up. I don't know. I don't understand why it misbehaved. The PowerPoint was already open. All I had to do was just to share my screen and it froze. I'm very, very, very sorry for disappointing, please. I apologize. This was meant to be better than this. PowerPoint-wise. Any other questions, please?
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, if there are no questions, we would like to thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, for taking your time and patiently answering all the questions and giving a practical examples and how to go about starting research as a medical student based on your experience. But we really appreciate you, and then I believe everybody has gained one or two things from this. And the recording to be shared with people who are missing this, and then all the materials and the PowerPoint slides. Once again, I want to thank you very much on behalf of Hafsa Skoma for sharing your knowledge with us this evening. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Babatunde. Thank you so much, Famsa Skoma. I'm most sincerely grateful for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. My name is Sadiq Sain Dambata. I'm the head of projects for Famsa Skoma. And this brings us to the conclusion of our research training program. Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, for sharing all the information and the wisdom from your years of experience in research with us. I hope everyone that was present here will be able to take away a lot from what he has shared with us here today, and you'll be able to apply it on your research journey going forward. We're very grateful for the time, and we're very grateful for the knowledge that you've shared with everyone here today. With regards to the slides, we'll make sure that we get them and share them with everybody on the paid groups. And I hope all questions, and I'm sure all questions now have been answered. And I believe with the weeks of intensive training that we've gone through, we've already set everyone here up for an illustrious career in research as medical students and also as medical professionals in the future. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, for your time. And thank you very much for the wisdom you've shared with us here. We're very grateful, and we cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Sadiq. It's wonderful finally getting to meet Sadiq Dambata. Thank you so much, everyone. This is me running away now. I'm most sincerely grateful. Take care, everyone.